I had 311 days logged at the threat board of the Wraithguard before I learned what silence actually sounds like. We were running the long picket past the Calder Drift, the kind of patrol nobody requests, and everybody draws eventually, mapping a stretch of dead space the charts called empty because no one had bothered to look closely. The cruiser ran cold and quiet, hull dark, drive signature folded down to a whisper. That was the whole purpose of a ship like the Wraithguard. We weren't built to be seen. We were built to see first. The moon came up on the long-range plot 11 hours into the watch, exactly where the survey chart said it would be. A dull gray body, no atmosphere, no name worth giving it, orbiting nothing in particular. Captain Okonkwo Reyes, no relation to me despite the name, wanted it logged and confirmed before we moved past. Routine. The kind of task that fills a patrol log and nothing else. I'd spent enough years at this board to know how routine usually felt. It felt like coffee going cold beside the console, like the low conversation of a crew that trusted the silence around them, like watching numbers settle into the ranges you expected before you'd even finished pulling them. The Wraithguard ran a tight ship. Petrov at gunnery liked to needle Lindquist about his chess habit. The captain liked her bridge quiet enough to think in. None of that changed when the moon came up. It was just one more rock in a long list of rocks, until it wasn't. I ran the passive scan first, the way I always did, because active pulses have a way of announcing you to anything listening. The return came back wrong before I understood why. A moon that size should hum, not loudly, but there's always something. Old impact stress working through the crust. Trace radioactive decay in the core, however faint. Micrometeorite strikes. The slow creak of a body settling under its own gravity across a billion years. Background noise. The universe's idea of silence is never actually silent. This was silent. I ran it twice, then a third time, widening the band, narrowing it, checking my own instrument before I checked the universe. Nothing. Not nothing of interest. Nothing at all. A clean, flat absence where there should have been the ordinary murmur of a rock that old. "Captain," I said, "I need you to look at this." Okonkwo Reyes came over without hurry. She'd learned, the way good captains do, that the worst thing you can do to a nervous sensor tech is make her feel foolish for being right. She studied the trace over my shoulder for a long moment. "Could be the instrument." "Could be," I said. "I'd bet against it." She didn't ask me why. She'd flown with me long enough to know I didn't bring her things I wasn't sure of. "Hold our profile," she said to the deck. "Quarter speed. Let's get a closer look before we decide it's nothing." The surface was too regular in places, the kind of regularity that erosion doesn't produce. I flagged 3 sites that read like seams. It's been a moon for a very long time, I said. Whatever it used to be. The seams resolved into structure. Structure resolved into a hull. Vast, ancient, folded so deep under regolith and dust and cold that it had worn the shape and silence of a natural body for longer than I wanted to think about. There was no warning shot, no hail, no light. The surface simply began to move, slabs of false stones sliding apart and falling away into the dark, revealing beneath them a hull the color of old iron, scarred in patterns too deliberate to be weather. Something that size waking is not a small thing to witness. The deck thrummed under my boots from gravitics bleeding off a structure kilometers across, shedding a disguise it must have worn since before my species learned to write. I had read about ships large enough to bend a sensor return on their own mass. I had never sat close enough to one waking up to feel the deck answer it. "Weapons boards lighting," called Petrov from gunnery, voice flat and fast. "It's got eyes on us. Locking." My hands were on the board. I could have answered that lock with one of our own. The Wraithguard carried enough teeth to make the exchange interesting, if not survivable. Okonkwo Reyes didn't give that order. "Hold," she said. "Just that. Hold fire. Hold position. Cut the drive bleed. I want us as quiet as we can be standing still. Captain, it's got a firing solution on us right now. And it's had 4 hours to use it and hasn't, she said. Something that's waited this long to wake up, didn't wake up to shoot the first thing it sees. I have replayed those minutes more times than I can count since, and I still don't have better words for them than this. It was the longest patience I have ever performed in my life, watching weapons hot and aimed at us across open space, and choosing, deliberately, again and again, not to answer them. The ancient hull didn't fire. It didn't retreat. It simply turned, slow and massive, until its sensor face, if that's what it was square on the Wraithguard, and held there, reading us, the way I had been reading it for the last 4 hours. I don't know what instruments a thing that old uses to look at a stranger. I only know that for a long, terrible stretch, it looked. Then the weapons board went quiet. Petrov said it twice before anyone believed him. What it did instead was simpler and, I think, more honest. It opened a single low-power channel and sent us 4 hours of its own passive sensor log from the time we'd spent approaching. Every careful, patient minute of our closing scan, handed back to us, as if to say, I watched you watch me, and you never once reached for a weapon first. Lindquist called it a gesture of trust. I think it was closer to a verdict. Something had been built and stationed at the edge of whatever territory it guarded, sealed in stone, sleeping for longer than human history, with one purpose: to wait for whoever eventually came close enough to wake it, and to learn from how they behaved in the silence before contact, whether they deserved to be met as something other than a threat. It didn't follow us. It didn't open further. After the data exchange, it powered down by degrees, the false stone sliding slowly back across the hull, the moon settling once more into the shape of something dead and ordinary, as if it intended to wait again. Not for us this time, but for whatever came after us, carrying forward whatever it had just decided about the things that walk between the stars. We logged the coordinates, flagged the system for a follow-up no one above my pay grade has explained to me yet, and turned the Wraithguard back onto our long, quiet patrol line. Nobody on that bridge talked for a while. Not from fear. From the particular kind of quiet that comes after you understand you were measured by something far older than your species and found, for once, to be enough. Even Petrov, who talked through most things, didn't have anything to say. He just powered down the weapons board, slow and careful, the way you'd set down something you'd almost dropped. I still run the passive scan out of habit every watch, listening for the ordinary hum that any honest rock should make. Some quiet, I learned out past the Calder drift, isn't empty. Some of it is just very old, and very carefully listening, waiting to see what you'll do with the gun in your hand and the stranger in front of you, before it decides whether to wake the rest of the way up. I don't know if we'll ever go back to that system, or whether the next ship to find it will pass the same quiet test we did. I only know that whatever is sleeping out there now sleeps a little differently than it did before we came, and so, in our own way, do we.